Hi, Nancy here, and today I want to show you how to do Judy's Magic Cast On. And this is a toe, a very large toe I made up for a class I'm doing, and of course I used Judy's Magic Cast On, but it gives a great example of how nice of a toe this makes. It really is second to none. Not only is it good for toe-up socks, but you can also use it for anything that requires a provisional cast on. So I've used it for lots of things, and it's a good technique to learn. So we're going to start with the magic loop, and another video I'll show you how to do it on double points. So you're going to start with your yarn, of course, and what you want to do is estimate a small amount of tail, adequate for the amount of stitches you need, and typically with a sock you're not going to need much, maybe 10-12 stitches, so just a little bit will do. And the working yarn is going to be away from you, always away from you, and the tail yarn is going to be closest to you. Hopefully you have a needle, a circular needle that has a good flexible cable. This one typically does. It just is very boingy today, but I think anyone that's ever worked with a circular needle can relate. So what I want to do is take the yarn in my left hand, and I'm going to have the working yarn over the index finger and the tail yarn will be over my thumb. I'm going to slip the yarn on the top needle. This is actually your first stitch. This we'll call the top needle, or you can call it needle number 1, whichever you prefer. What you want to remember is that the finger yarn is always on the bottom needle, and the thumb yarn will go around the top. That never changes. So we're going to start. We have one stitch here, and we're going to put one on the bottom needle. So we're taking our index finger, bringing it underneath the bottom needle, around and through the middle. Now we're going to take the thumb, go through the middle, over the top, and around. The finger from the bottom, through the middle, thumb, through the middle, over the top. Now always remember that you want to keep this nice, and I don't want to say loose, but don't pull it overly tight or you're going to have a very difficult time knitting it off your needle. Another thing that I like to point out is most of the patterns, several of them will tell you to immediately begin increasing for your toe, and I don't do that. I do like to knit one round before I start increasing, and you'll see why. It's putsy, and so it's just nice to get a row on there. Now I'm done. I've done 5 stitches on each. I think I have 2, 4, 5, yes. Now one thing I like to do is if I let go of this, you see there's really nothing holding on to that stitch. So I take my working yarn and go with my tail yarn, and I cross them. So I'm just going to bring the tail off to the side, and I'm going to bring my working yarn up, and you see how I crossed that? So now I'm going to rotate this to the right. I'm going to find the tail, and I'm just going to give it a nice pull. You see that? And all I've done there is just give it something to anchor on. Once you get a row on here, it's much easier, but until then, I just like that little something to hold on to. Now we're ready to do our first row, our first half, I should say, of our round. So I'm going to take the bottom needle and I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to knit my first 5 stitches. So off we go. Okay. So now we've knit half of our stitches, and I'm going to turn it again to the right, and then I'm going to push my needle back up into position. You do a lot of this when you're doing magic loop. Now this is a 40-inch needle, and that is typically very sufficient for toe-up socks. And it should work for 2 at a time if you choose to do that. Some people prefer 47 inches. It's totally up to you, but I use a 40. I've never had any problem. Okay, so now we've gotten one half done, and now we have to do the other half. So get your working yarn anchored in your hand. Don't knit your tail. Okay, bring this up. And then we'll get across these stitches. See, I have a very boingy needle, or boingy cable. It just drives you nuts. Okay, so now we're going to turn, always turning it. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is you can place a marker on your work to designate your full round. But as you can see, the tail and the working yarn, once they're on the same side, you've completed an entire round. But whatever you prefer doing is fine, although I will caution you, if you put just a free marker on your needle, it's going to fall off. So you want to put one that you can actually pin and move up when and if you need to. So that really is it, and that would be the toe, the starting point of your sock using the Magic Loop Judy Becker cast on. Thank you.